Here's another little piece of history, and I hope this will help you look at the antique singing bowls and understand a little bit more of how they evolved and how the construction changed over time to move away from the really difficult construction method of the early bowls where they folded the metal over the outside of the rim and created that really big shelf to make the rim symmetrical, right? And when they were hammered and finished smooth, you didn't see that crevice. You could see here where it's still closed up. And my discovery years ago was that the fold where it was sealed here starts to separate after several hundred years. That seems to take, 500-600 years to start. And over time, get that separation, and that's how we know now that that's how they made them. It's considered a lost art. And as far as I know, I'm the first and only person to figure that out. In Nepal, they just say it's a lost art. And they wanted to move away from that, and what I call the transitional bowls, they started to develop other techniques. So here's an early flared bowl that still has that folded technique and not much of a flare. Actually, I don't think most people would notice this. This is one of the more typical flared bowls where they come up at that angle and flare out a little bit at the rim. You can see it over here where it flares out a little bit. And that is a method that was used on not a large number of bowls. It had a short lifespan as a way to replace that folding technique and still get a symmetrical rim. So here's a transitional bowl, I think, from a shop that would have started doing more of a flare, where it's getting there. They're still folding it, but they're not creating as big of a shelf, and maybe starting to figure out that by shaping the body of the bowl, they can hide that asymmetry a little bit in this angle. So starting to develop there, and then we see the height of it. I don't know if that's how many generations that took to change, but it's certainly not instant, and may represent several generations of makers slowly figuring this out. Some of it may have been developed by one person over time. Judging from the differences, it took them a long time to make any changes. So this is the height of the flared bowls. That's what they typically look like, though they're not typically this small. There's not a lot of them. They're likely also made in pairs, because I only find them in two sizes, this size and the 7-inch size. So like other bowls that were made in pairs, maybe I have a twin for this one. I'll have to check, because I still have a few of those more typical flared bowls like that left. And then at their height, something even more refined. And again, it's not exactly the same as the typical flare, but they're using the side of the bowl, changing the thickness a little bit, and changing the squeezing it here a little bit to get the rim more symmetrical. So it creates that kind of shape and lets them have that that top. And this went away when the final stage of manufacturing was introduced, which were the scraped rims. So the final assessment, and even what they do today, instead of any kind of a fold, an outward fold, the Jambatis have the inward fold. These have kind of a mock fold without any kind of a folding. Instead, they adopted just on the majority of singing bowls, and certainly everything made today, they scrape the top to make a symmetrical shape.